Welcome back to the Be a Better You podcast. I'm your host, Allison K. Dagney, your subconscious reprogramming expert and trauma-informed coach. For those of you tuning in for the very first time, let me just share a little bit about me. I am a survivor of 20 years of emotional abuse, and after finding the tools that help me finally break free from rumination and self-doubt and emotional pain, I made it my personal mission to help other women do the same. I wrote 2 best-selling memoirs, When Tears Leave Scars and Radiate and Rise, to tell my stories. And I now guide women through powerful subconscious healing so that they can stop reliving the past and start building the futures they actually want. So this podcast is where I share not just education and tools, but also real stories, practical strategies, and the truths that survivors need to hear. So you can see that you're not broken and healing is absolutely possible. So let's get started on today's episode. Now, today what we're going to be talking about is making these difficult decisions after being in an abusive relationship and how to start building self-trust. So if you're someone who's ever been presented with different options and you're terrified of making the wrong choice, you are not alone, because survivors of emotional abuse often second guess themselves to the point of utter exhaustion. It is like a paralyzing freeze response. We don't know what to do or how to make decisions. So we're going to be talking about this today. So if this is something that you've struggled with, stay tuned, because I really want to help you through this process. Now, before we begin, I just want to remind you about the free beliefs quiz that I have on my website at radiateandrise.com. You can go out there and you can take that quiz today, and it will start to reveal the subconscious limiting beliefs and patterns that you have and that you're struggling with. Even at the bottom, you can insert your own things that you're thinking about, and I'm going to take some serious time to go through this with deep intention and give you some tools and some reframes. And I look at every single one of these individually myself personally. So I need about 48 hours to get through that once you've submitted it. But when you do, I will give you a total printout with every detailed explanation, reframe, and pattern that I'm seeing, with some guiding principles to move you forward. So give that a peek on my website. Okay, so let's jump into this. This is something that I had learned actually from my boyfriend. He told me this and he taught me this through my healing journey, and I want to share it with you. And maybe you've heard it before, but there is an old philosopher named Marcus Tullius Cicero, and one of his famous quotes was that there is more lost by indecision than wrong decision. And this is really, really important. I'm going to go through what this actually means and give you some specific examples, but I want you to keep this in mind as you go through your day today. More is lost through indecision than wrong decision. Now, what's coming up here in this episode is why self-doubt happens, like why we are not trusting ourselves to make decisions. And I'm going to share with you some real stories of these kinds of struggles that people have gone through that I have personally worked with or know, and how, which is the important part here, to break free and start building self-trust. So number 1, why do survivors struggle with decisions? Well, this all starts in the subconscious mind. And when you were told by your parents or by abusers in your life that your choices were wrong, or they were bad, or they were stupid, or insert whatever negative word, right? Your choices are bad. You make bad decisions. You don't know what you're doing, right? That was a stupid choice. What happens then is you start to develop these patterns in your mind where you believe that if you make a decision, doesn't matter what it is, that it's going to be wrong or it's going to be bad or flawed in some way, okay? So what happens after that is that you start to associate your decision making with being punished, with being mocked, or having to justify what you've decided instead of coming from it from a place of confidence, assuredness, security, that sort of thing. So over time, your brain starts associating this with danger, and it's not safe to make decisions. So you may find yourself not only doubting yourself in decisions, not trusting that you can make the right decisions, but leaning on other people. So calling, 15 people to say, well, what do you think? And what's the right thing? Or what should I do? I remember doing this all the time when I was married to my ex, because if I struggled with something, I wouldn't know how to handle it. I would call my mother-in-law, my father, my stepmom, my mom, my friends. I would request everybody, tell me what you would do. How would you handle it? And think that, I'm just gathering information so that I can make the best decision. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but we really got to get to the point where we trust ourselves to make the decision, because we are the one that needs to do it. So a thing I want you to remember here is that self-doubt, like not trusting yourself, isn't who you are, right? This isn't like a personality trait, like, I can't make decisions. Like, that's just who I am. I'm kind of wishy-washy. No, it's conditioning. It's something that happened to you over time repeatedly in your subconscious mind. And then it took root, and now you behave like that all the time. Now, the thing that survivors think often when they fear making the wrong decision. Okay, so this like base pattern of like, I will make the wrong choice. What they're really thinking is, if I mess up, there's going to be a consequence that's really undesirable, meaning I'm going to get in more trouble. Someone else is going to shame me for it. I'm going to be criticized. I'm not going to be supported or feel safe. I'll have to pay for this later, right? That sort of thing. If I make a mistake, then that means I am broken, or I am flawed, or I can't do the right thing, right? Or mistakes are bad, or I shouldn't make mistakes, right? These are the kinds of subconscious programs that a lot of survivors carry, which makes it obviously very difficult to make decisions because of that paralyzing fear. So you get stuck in this freeze response where you don't want to do anything. I'm just not going to make a decision because I'm too afraid that if I do, XYZ will happen. And not necessarily even the outcome of your decision will be wrong, but like that you're going to pay for it later. So even if you aren't with your abuser anymore, and they're not going to criticize you, they're not going to shame you, they're not in your life anymore, but you're still operating from that same level of fear. Another thing that abuse victims and survivors often believe is that they can't trust themselves to know what's best. Like, I don't know the answer. You'll literally hear yourself saying, I don't know what the answer is. I'm not sure. I don't know. Right? And you might be sitting here nodding your head thinking, yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know if I should choose this or this. But I'm telling you, it's not because you don't have the answers. It's because you're afraid to make the wrong decision. But here's the thing. A wrong choice is still movement. It's action. And it teaches you and it gives you feedback. And it helps propel you forward, right? But standing still and being in that frozen state keeps you stuck. And again, go back to that quote that I said earlier, that more is lost through indecision than wrong decision. I really want you to think about that. And I'm going to give you an example of how this came up for one of my clients. So in my one-on-one emotional healing mastery program, a client of mine was moving hundreds of miles away across, from north to south in the country. And she was selling her home, and she had like 30 years of stuff in this home, and she had to get rid of it because she was moving to a smaller place with just her to live. And she had to go through a lot of old memorabilia, a lot of, memories, things that she'd been, accumulating over the course of 30 years. And she had sold her house. So I was helping her through this process, and she couldn't decide whether she should get a dumpster, like go ahead and pay $500 to get a dumpster to stick it in the garage or in the driveway to throw the stuff out to get a rental truck and start making trips to Goodwill, or to get a storage unit and then put the stuff in the storage unit in that state where she was leaving, with the intention of maybe possibly coming back at some point and getting it right. So there's all these like things going through her mind, right? Like, I don't know, should I do this? I might want these things. Maybe I should keep them. Maybe I should get rid of them, right? And I'm not talking about like, this, again, this is 30 years of stuff. This is a lot of stuff. Okay. So what I noticed was happening in her thought processes was that she was wasting time worrying about what to do with the home closing coming up. Like, it was weeks away and she had a lot of work to do and she didn't really have a ton of help. So it was a lot of pressure, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of stress. And like, what do I do? Do I get the truck? Do I get the storage unit? Do I just go ahead and get a dumpster and start throwing stuff away? Like, what's the right thing to do? And as we were talking back and forth in our Voxer, I remember reminding her of this, like, more is lost through indecision than wrong decision. Because if you continue to think about, worry about, what's the right decision? What should I do? What about this? What about that? Right? You're just wasting time in your brain when you could be taking action. So there is a cost to indecision. You lose time, you create stress, you exhaust yourself with all of this mental energy, maybe additional stress because of physical energy that you have to put forth. And so my client ended up, through our conversation, deciding to get a dumpster, because what her thought process ended up pointing to was that there's going to be way more stress involved if I try to save these items, store them up, have to worry about them later after I move and possibly come back. And am I going to even want it at that time, right? So there was a pivotal moment in her where the light bulb came on and she said, I have to make a decision and I'm not going to do these other options. I'm just going to get the dumpster and start throwing things away. So when she did that, she was so relieved, because it was like the choice had been made and she could actually start taking action at that point. She could start moving things out of the house, getting it cleared up, and getting closer to that goal of finally moving out of the house. And this is the kind of transformation that I see in my emotional healing mastery program. And I know that, this doesn't have a lot to do with, your specific ruminating over your ex or like things like that. But this is something that survivors struggle with. This is a real thing that survivors struggle with, indecision. Like, I don't know. And this person had been traumatized throughout her life as a child, throughout her life as an adult. And she struggles with these decisions. And so I'm trying to help her see the cost to not making the decision, the benefit to making the decision now, and what it is happening in her subconscious mind that's keeping her from being able to make that decision. And a lot of things that were coming up was, this is going to be the wrong decision, or I'm going to regret having thrown the stuff in the dumpster, or I'm going to wish I had these things sitting in the storage unit or hadn't thrown them away, right? So there's all these layers of like beliefs that we have to sift through, which is what I helped her with. And then she finally got the clarity. And then she messaged me so relieved and so happy. And she got everything done. She got the whole house cleared out by the time she needed to. And now she's moved and she's back in her new place without all this added worry and stress about the things that she gotten rid of, that she didn't put in a storage unit. Like, she doesn't have that stress anymore. She literally erased the mental clutter and the physical clutter. And this is not just about making a decision, but it's about deciding to reclaim your life, because at this point, she has more control now and she doesn't feel attached to all the things that she was worried about getting rid of or storing or taking with her. It became such a relief in her mind. Now, I want to share another story with you because I had a podcast listener reach out to me in an email yesterday, unsure about what to do with their ex's things. They were in a long distance relationship and the relationship had ended, but this person had accumulated their ex's things. Not a lot, but some of their ex's things, some of their ex's children's things even. And this person was asking me like what to do. Like, do I get rid of this stuff? Do I send it back to them? Like, what do I do? And obviously, I'm not in a position to tell you what to do. I'm not you. I can't tell you what the right decision is. So I asked some questions like, well, has this person asked for it back? Did they want their things? You know, are you thinking about keeping it for a certain reason? Do you want to get rid of it for a certain reason? Do you have beliefs like, well, if I throw it out, then I'm a bad person, right? Or if I get rid of it, then that means it's really over and there's no way we're going to ever reconnect. And maybe you're holding on to that, right? So I asked a lot of questions to try to figure out like, what is the reason that you're struggling with this indecision, because that's the problem. It's like we can't make a decision because we have all these other things, these noises in the background. And they told me that their ex had actually sent a message saying, you know, if you want to send it back, fine, but if you don't, I understand, you can just throw it away. Something to that effect. And so this person is trying to decide, well, I don't know what to do because they said they, want it back, but I could also throw it away. But the reason that the decision was becoming so hard to make wasn't because there were two options, because, you could easily just choose one or the other. The reason it's hard is because there's limiting subconscious programs that are running under the surface. So maybe it's this fear of finality, fear of regret, fear of confirming that the breakup is real, right? But what we really need to do is, one, figure out what's at the root there and then reframe it, right? The act of deciding is reclaiming your power. It's not lost. It's saying, look, I have a decision. I have to make a decision. I'm either going to take this person's stuff and chuck it in a dumpster, take it to Goodwill, donate it to give it to somebody else, whatever, or I'm going to pack it up in boxes and send it. You have options no matter what, right? If you pack it up in boxes and send it, you could be opening the door to more communication and interaction. And in this case, this person had already been no contact. So if this person decided to send it back, does that kind of break no contact? Yeah, it kind of does, right? Now, if you have them blocked and like things like that, they're not going to be reaching out to you anyway. You're not going to see any messages. You just send the stuff and it's out of sight, out of mind. If that makes you feel better, feel like a better person, that you're not just throwing their stuff away, that's fine. If you decide to throw it in the garbage because you're like, I'm done and I want to maintain my boundary of no contact and I don't want to open up any doors, then you need to figure out what's the reason that you resist doing that. Why do I feel, this struggle to do that? What is it that I'm believing that is making me think that if I do this, then I'm a bad person, or if I do this, I'm wasteful, or if I throw their stuff away, then that means there'll be no chance of reconnection ever in the future, even though I've already gone no contact and I think maybe we could reconnect one day, right? We have to really dig through the weeds here, okay? But again, it's not about just choosing, one or the other. It's about what is in the way of being able to choose. This is how you reclaim your power back, right? Because more is lost through indecision. And in this case, this person, what they're losing is peace of mind, finality, possibly closure, right? Maybe sleep, because every time they go into the bathroom and they see the things that belong to their ex, it's reminding them. It could be tying them to the past, right? This emotional energy connection, right? So more is lost through indecision than wrong decision. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Now, I know you want to know, how do we start building this self-trust? How do we do this? And I have other episodes on this too, but I'm going to take this from a little different angle here. So one thing that we want to do when we are trying to rebuild self-trust is start small. It is going to be impossible for you if you've never trusted yourself before to make a decision to all of a sudden just do it. Can you do this if you're somebody who's really, really, really good at willpower? Yeah, absolutely. But most of us aren't that way. That's only running 5% of the show. So make daily decisions, little ones, that you don't have to consult others for, right? When you feel that urge to like ask your friend and call your mom and, seek support from somebody else and like, what would you do? Or how should you do this? Or going on Reddit or going on, Threads or whatever, Facebook, how do I handle this? Do your own decision making for something small, okay? And start building that trust in yourself, because you're going to be practicing doing the decision making, whether it's right or wrong. And I put those in air quotes because who's to say it's actually right or wrong, okay? Now, another thing you can do is to flip the script on yourself. Instead of this constant thing, like, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I'm wrong? What if it turns out bad? You've got to start flipping that. You got to pay attention to how you talk to yourself. What if I'm right? What if I make the right decision? What if I do the right thing? What if this turns out better than I could have imagined? What if this gives me peace? What if this gives me closure? What if this is the thing that I really needed? Right? We got to start paying attention to how we speak to ourselves and what we run through our minds, and then actively choose a different thought. Actively choose to think something different. Okay? Another thing is to track these wins. So my client who did this, I remind her about it. Remember you made that decision and how awesome it was and how you had so much relief afterwards? Right? And then what I noticed is, and she's messaging me, oh, this happened and then I did this. She's doing it automatically. It's automatically starting to kick in for her because she's reminded about her wins. Wait, it's safe to make a decision. It's okay to choose something, right? And so just this morning, she messaged me because she had a flat tire and she wasn't sure what she should do. And so we talked it through and she made the choice. Do I get one tire or do I get 2 tires? Or do I get 4 tires? And in her mind, she ran it through, and within minutes, she had her decision. Within minutes, she knew what to do. But this is because she's started small, she's made these decisions for herself, and she's shown her mind that it's safe to do it. Right? Because in the past, we've been made to believe that it wasn't safe or that something bad would happen if we make a decision. Especially if you have been in a relationship with someone and no matter what you decided, it was always wrong. And I remember this because it could be something as simple as my ex-husband asking me to choose which restaurant we were going to go for dinner. And I would say, I don't want to choose because you'll be upset with me no matter what I choose. And he would say, no, I won't. Just make a decision. Just choose, right? And so I'd say, okay, well, give me 2 options. And sometimes he would. Okay, well, I'll just use something simple. McDonald's or Wendy's. And I would choose, let's say, McDonald's. And then he would say, oh, I hate McDonald's. Why would you choose that? So it's like this kind of crazy making thing. And again, this is partly why, a big reason why we get stuck in this freeze response, because you can't win. Okay? But especially if you're no longer in the relationship with this person and you are moved forward and you are trying to heal, there's nobody out there criticizing you. You get to make the decisions yourself. Okay? It's your life. And yeah, sometimes we make decisions that aren't that great, but we got to learn from them. That's the key. We got to learn from them. We had the opportunity to make a different choice. We didn't. Now we know. Next time I would do this. Because There's always a silver lining. There's always a blessing. There's always something that is working out in our favor. And if we can shift our mindset and look at it that way, instead of, oh, I'm always making the bad decisions and I can't make a decision to save my life, right? Like you're just going to keep perpetuating that in your life. What does that outlook look like for you if you keep doing that? What is your life going to look like if you keep doing that? Okay? The other thing that you do to start rebuilding this self-trust is notice the relief when it happens. Most of the stress that we have comes before the decision, not after. It comes from this buildup that we do in our minds, where we're constantly building up all the stress. Okay? Oh, what if I do this wrong? Oh, what if this? What if that? Blah, blah, blah. Like we go through all the scenarios. And I'm not saying you shouldn't think of scenarios. Of course, you've got to like weigh the pros and cons and the benefits and the risks and things like that, right? That's logical. That's mature. That's grounded behavior. But if you find that you're like ruminating over it, you're overworking yourself mentally, you're stressing yourself out, right? Before you make a decision, that's the opportunity to pause. Okay, so you've got to notice that there's actually relief in just making a decision, right? Like, okay, this is what I need to do. I mean, you could even take this to like if you're in a relationship with somebody and you don't know if you want to continue or not, and you're worried about, should I stay in this relationship or not? Think about how stressed you are while you're trying to figure it out. But if you make a decision, you say, you know what, I'm actually going to end this. Or you know what, I'm actually going to continue with this. And I'm going to do this, and this instead, right? At least you have a decision. It's the indecision that keeps us in that stress space. And that's where that quote comes from: more is lost through indecision than wrong decision, because you're stressing yourself out. You're emotionally exhausted. You are wasting time, wasting money, wasting opportunity, all of those things. But here's the thing I want you to remember is that, and I always have to say this to you guys, there's nothing wrong with you. If you can't make decisions, it's not your fault. It's your programming. You're not broken. Okay? You're just running on these old, outdated programs that, mind you, can be rewired, can be reprogrammed because of the brain's neuroplasticity. So if you're tired of this and you're like really like tired of yourself not being able to make decisions and you're like, oh, this is so frustrating and so annoying, well, I can help you with that. All you have to do is schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me and we can get to the root of what it is for you, because it's going to be different for everybody. Okay? You can find that on my website too, that link, or in the show notes here. So I want to go through a couple of common decisions that survivors struggle with, and maybe you'll relate or find these relatable. But like day-to-day choices, like what am I going to eat for dinner, right? What if I choose wrong? What if I waste food? This is a reality for many people. Like not even knowing what to eat, what to wear, right? Oh, well, maybe I'll look stupid if I don't pick out the right outfit. So you spend all this time trying to figure out what to wear. You know, would this person that I'm meeting with like this outfit? Would they think it's good enough? Would they think I'm trying to prove something? Like all this mental chatter. This is what happens to survivors. Which route to take when you're going somewhere? What if I go this way? Should I go that way? Is it going to be more traffic if I go this way? Am I going to waste time if I drive that way? What if I get lost? Right? Even what shows to watch. What if I try to watch this and I don't like it? What if I try to watch that and it's like a waste of my time? These are real things that people struggle with. Talk about like in your life or like your household decisions. Again, this kind of goes back to like what I was saying with my client. Like, should I donate it? Should I throw it away? Should I keep it? Because this is all rooted in fear or regret or guilt. Oh, I can't get rid of these, things of my kids, these pictures, these things that they made, because then that means I'm a bad mom, or it means I didn't care about it, or it means I don't care about them. No, it doesn't mean that. Take a picture of it, snap it, put it in a file, and throw the rest in the trash. What's wrong with that? Right? It's just shifting your mindset and, shifting how you think about these things. How to decorate. What if somebody doesn't like it? What if people judge me? What are they going to think about my decisions? Spending money on yourself. This was a big one. This was a big one for me. Well, that's selfish. I should spend my money on other people. Well, maybe I shouldn't really buy this, right? Those kind of decision fatigue, decision freeze up, right? Parenting choices even, like what activities should my kids be in, and how should I discipline them, and what should I say to them, and what if this upsets them, and what if I mess up my child, right? All these things, again, this could even extend to your pets. Should I adopt a pet? Should I rehome a pet? Should I, care for a pet that my friend has that needs help? Like, these are real things people struggle with all the time who have been made to believe they can't make a good decision. When we're talking about relationships, those kinds of decisions, oh my gosh, responding to texts or calls from your ex, like, oh, if I don't answer, they'll be mad at me or they'll think I'm mean. Again, decisions like, what do I do? How do I decide? I don't know what to do. Like, you freeze up. You don't know what to do. What to do with the belongings from the ex, like I said with this person who messaged me. If I threw it out, what does that really mean? Should I block this person on social media? What if they get mad? What if they talk about me? Should I go no contact? Right? All these things, these questions. Maybe you're thinking about when I should start dating again, and what if I don't see the red flags, or what if I pick the wrong person, that kind of thing. And then even like friends and family stuff where you're afraid to say yes or afraid to say no. What if I disappoint them? What if they don't like my answer? What if they don't like my suggestion, right? All these things, like, it really, really impacts your life in so many ways. I'm sure you probably feel that. And even if you have like big things, like how my client, like moving, and what to do, like whether to stay in the area that you're at, whether to move to a new place, if you are making a decision about a job, like applying for a job or taking an interview or switching careers, because what if people think I'm stupid, or what if I fail? This can be related to therapy or coaching. Like, what if it doesn't work for me? And, again, like these kinds of things will keep you stuck, and they'll just keep you in a position of that more is lost through indecision than wrong decision, right? Because what if you did make a choice and you find out really, really soon that it was such a great decision and you're so glad that you did it, right? Oh man, I've had so many clients tell me before, I wish I had made this decision years ago. I wish I had started working with you long ago, because man, it's been a year since I first found you, and I've been mulling it over, and I could have been a year further ahead. We can't dwell on regrets, right? Because obviously that person came at the right time for them. But the point of me telling you this is that, again, more is lost through indecision than wrong decision. So do any of these sound familiar to you? And maybe other things that I haven't mentioned are coming up in your mind. But if you found yourself nodding your head to some of these things, just please know, again, there's nothing wrong with you. This is just because your nervous system is attached to those old traumas from the past. So it's been trained to believe that every choice that you make is dangerous, that it's unsafe. And so I want you to know it's not dangerous. It's not unsafe. We just have to find that safety so that your nervous system can settle in and say, oh, wait, okay, I can make a decision without having a negative outcome as it relates to what my trauma was, as it relates to how someone else treated me or made me believe that I was bad or wrong or shamed me for my decisions. That you can let yourself off the hook. You can make decisions for yourself and be it the quote unquote wrong decision. Who says it's wrong? It's exactly what you needed to learn. It's exactly what you needed to get answers. When you're not making decisions, you're in limbo. And in limbo, you are not moving. You are literally stuck. You are not taking action in any direction. So that's why it's so important to make sure that you start building the self-trust, you start practicing how to make yourself feel safe, that you shift your thinking about what it means to make a decision and what you're making it mean if you make the quote unquote wrong decision, right? That something bad will happen, or that people won't like me, or that I'll have regrets, whatever that might be. So this takes some practice, this takes some intention, but it's totally possible to start building this self-trust in yourself again so that you can get yourself out of limbo and stop relying on everybody else. Because what happens if you need to make a decision and there's no one to consult, right? You've got to trust that I've thought through all the things. I'm intelligent enough to work through all the scenarios, and I'm confident enough to make a decision and know that even if it's not the greatest decision, that it taught me something or that it gives me new information. Another thing I want to just plug here is that when your nervous system is dysregulated, it's really hard to find the answers within yourself. And the reality is the answers are within yourself, okay? But if you are in a heightened state of anxiety, you're in a low state of depression, whatever that might be, your nervous system is not even, it's not regulated. And so it's going to be a lot harder to hear the intuitive guidance, the inner knowing that is already inside of you. This intuition of knowing what you really should do or need to do. So that's why it's so important to, number one, regulate your nervous system, but number two, reframe, reprogram the old stories that have been running on autopilot so that you can hear that voice, so that you can make those decisions. Because with all this other, it's like alarms blaring and sirens going off and clutter and clankety clank and all these other things happening, it's it's going to be hard to make a decision because you don't have that clarity of mind. You have all this other noise happening. So when we get our nervous systems regulated and when we reprogram our minds, it's like opening up a new road that we can say, oh my gosh, there's the clear road. That's the road I need to take. It makes life so much easier. So if after hearing this, you're realizing that the self-doubt is running the show for you, I want to tell you, you don't have to live like this. It doesn't have to be your reality. And I offer things like my Ask Allison Voxer support to support you with this, where you can get direct help. You just press a button and you start talking, and I hear your message, and I press a button and I start talking back to you. And I help you when these kinds of decision overwhelms hit you. Like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to help you see what's in the way of you believing that you can make the decision yourself. Or what's running the show in the background, those subconscious beliefs that are telling you that something horrible or bad's going to happen if you make this choice or that choice, right? So if that's something that you're struggling with, you can find that information on my website as well. It's www.radiate.rise.com, and you can see how that works. And I do monthly subscriptions for this. So if you want to do that, you can either just sign up for it directly on my website, or you can message me if you want to learn about what that entails and the kind of support that you'll get. So just as a reminder, every decision that you make is a chance to rebuild trust in you. Okay? It's going to give you information no matter what you decide. Choice A, choice B. If I choose choice A, maybe that was confirmation that I made a really easy decision and it turned out really great. If I make choice B, maybe I learned that next time I need to think about XYZ a little bit more before I make a decision, right? Whatever it is, you're going to get something from it. Okay? So making decisions, baby ones, little ones to start, is going to be really, really helpful to set you on that trajectory towards being able to be that self-trusting person who can make decisions. So you don't need to be perfect to move forward. That's a myth. Like, you don't have to have it all figured out. No, you just need to choose. I don't know if I ever talked about this on my podcast, but it just popped into my head. This was years ago. I was probably 20 years old. I remember driving in some unknown part of town, and there was many weird exits, and there was a lot of construction and barrels, and I had the option to go left or right. Now, this was back before we had like GPS and stuff like that. Like, I just had a MapQuest map or something, and I didn't know where I was, and I was very confused. And so instead of going left or right, I went straight and I ran into a barrel. Okay? I ran into a barrel. And I just remember thinking at that moment, like, oh my gosh, like, I could not make a decision. Had I just I thought, oh my gosh, if I go left, it could be the wrong decision and I could be in a bad part of town. If I go right, I could make the wrong decision and be in a bad part of town, right? It was the same thing for me, really. It was like both decisions were bad. So I just went straight and ran into a barrel. And guess what? More was lost through that indecision than wrong decision, because had I just chosen a path, I wouldn't have run into the barrel. I wouldn't have wasted time. I wouldn't have messed up my car, like all of these other things, okay? So that just popped into my head. So just as a little visual for that. So either go online, take the quiz on my website, check out the offerings on my website even. Maybe the Emotional Healing Mastery is something that would really benefit you to work with me one-on-one. Or maybe you just need that kind of support to help you shift in my Ask Allison Voxer support. That's fine. Like, I provide lots of different options for you so that I can give you the support that you need. And I want you to remember this one thing, that the moment that you start to choose for yourself is the moment that you start to heal and rebuild that trust in you. So making decisions might seem scary, but it really is the most important thing you can start doing for yourself, because it builds that self-trust. All right, thanks so much for listening. I hope this episode has been helpful to you. If you know somebody who's struggling like this, please send them this episode and have them listen. Connect with me on Instagram, on Facebook, wherever you are in this social media land. You can always email me at allison@radiateandrise.com if you have any suggestions, or if you just want to chat about something. I'm happy to do that. So thanks for being here, and I will talk to you next week.